everybody. This is Alan Feldman from the Laguna Woods Democratic Club. Thank you for taking the time to watch us today. Well, we just finished one election, and as always, there's another one coming up. The California state primary is scheduled for June 2022. I know for a lot of us, that seems like an awful long ways away. But if you're running for elective office in that election, it's just around the corner. We're going to be speaking today with three people who are running for office in that election. Shireen Smith, candidate for the Orange County Board of Education in the 5th District. Joe Kerr, candidate for the Orange County Board of Supervisors in the 5th District. And Pete Hardin, candidate for the Orange County District Attorney's Office. Now, the 5th District where Shireen Smith and Joe Kerr are running is the district that Laguna Woods is currently in as we're recording this program. There's redistricting going on. There's no guarantee we will still be in the 5th District by the time you see the show, but we'll deal with that when we have to. We're going to give you an opportunity today to see the three candidates who are running for office, listen to what they say, and give them an opportunity to speak to you. Before we start talking with the first candidate, I just wanted to say a word about voting and elections in California. Voting in California is simple. It's as easy as can be and as convenient as can be. Our elections, the ballot, that's a different story. They can be confounding, confusing. The election coming up in June is the primary election. In the California primaries, the top two vote getters for each office in the June primary move on to the November general election where they run against each other. But for the race for Board of Education, Shireen Smith's election, whoever gets the most votes in June wins. It's not a primary for them, it's a general election. As for the other two offices, District Attorney and Board of Supervisors, well, it could be a primary with the two top vote getters for each individual office run against each other in November. But if one of those or any of those top vote getters from either of those offices receive more than 50% of the vote in June, then there is no November election. They are elected in June. So it's kind of a head-spinning hybrid between a general election and a primary election. But it makes it so important that we vote in every election in California, primary election, general election. And it's so important that we vote for every race on that ballot, from the top of the ballot, which in June will be the U.S. Senate seat, all the way down to the most obscure junior college district trustee's office. Every one of them is important. Every one of them means something. We're speaking with Pete Hart, candidate for the Orange County District Attorney's Office. So Pete, thank you so much for taking the time and speaking with us today. It's greatly appreciated.
Great to be here, Alan. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. Before we get to, as we're doing with all the people that we speak to, before we get into the race itself and the office itself, would you just introduce yourself to the people who are watching us today? Just a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in the position you're in right now.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the question, Alan. I appreciate it. You know, my dad was a former Army soldier who later became a judge. My mother was a school teacher who raised me and my three siblings. And they really raised me with the values that guided them in their career, which were servant leadership, courage, integrity, respect, and compassion. And those, I think, are the values that really drove me in my career in public service. As a Marine Corps officer and a judge advocate, I'm a combat veteran, having served for a year with a reconnaissance battalion in Afghanistan. I'm a former deputy district attorney right here in Orange County, and I'm a former federal prosecutor. I was a special assistant United States attorney at the U.S. Attorney's Office here in the Central District of California. So I've had the great honor of serving as a prosecutor at every level of our country's criminal justice system. I've also been on the other side of the courtroom and done work at each of those levels as well.
Okay. And again, one other question before we go, elemental question to be sure, but people just don't know. What does the district attorney of Orange County do? What does the job entail? What are the responsibilities?
Yeah, great question, Alan. District attorneys across this country wield a tremendous amount of power and discretion. They prosecute the vast majority of criminal cases. They decide what investigations are prioritized, what types of cases are prosecuted, what types of sentences are sought, what types of diversions or alternatives to people going through the criminal justice system are available. And then finally, what types of sentences are sought as well. District attorneys are really the gatekeepers for justice in our communities across this country.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And well, let's get to it now. I mean, I'm guessing you're running for district attorney because you don't like what's going on with the current district attorney or the district attorney's office. So I guess the first question is, what do you see as the shortcomings of both the office itself and our current district attorney? How do you think they can be improved upon?
There's just a real lack of leadership, Alan, and ethical behavior at the head of that office. Our current district attorney is a career politician who has used and abused the power of his office for his own personal and political gain for the better part of a quarter century now. And the predictable result of that is a sea of scandals that the office finds itself in now, and morale there has been devastated. You know, our current district attorney is facing no less than 4 lawsuits for sexual harassment within his office, for promoting a guy who is known to harass women. This is our district attorney's best friend, the best man in his wedding. He promoted and then allowed him to quietly retire with top flight benefits instead of facing the consequences of his action. He's facing another lawsuit for political corruption, pay for play corruption from a DA investigator who worked incredibly close with our district attorney and appears to have a mountain of evidence suggesting the corruption of our current district attorney. He's the only DA in California history, and this is so troubling, to be kicked off of a case by a judge because of his unethical treatment of survivors of sexual assault. I'm talking here about the Newport Beach doctor sexual assault case. He tried to dismiss that case. He publicly outed the private identities of survivors of sexual assault who were courageous enough to come forward. And it later turned out, we later discovered that the defense attorney in that case was a major contributor to our DA's campaign. So obvious corruption and conflict of interest issues there as well.
My understanding is that these problems actually predated our current district attorney, who ran as a reformer, but it doesn't seem like he's done any reforming whatsoever. He's maybe even made the situation worse. You know,
I think that's absolutely right. Yeah, look, Tony Rackauckus, our former district attorney, was in office for almost 20 years. And there was one major scandal towards the end of his time in office, is the Jailhouse informant scandal, which our current district attorney took full advantage of as he campaigned as a reformer. But he's come into office and he hasn't done a darn thing to clean house, as he said when he was running. And in fact, yes, he's absolutely made things worse. I mean, in 3 years, he's had more lawsuits and scandals that cost this county dearly, both morally and financially, than our previous district attorney had in the better part of 20 years.
Yeah. Well, let's get to the, you know, there's been some new thinking, new ways of thinking about our criminal justice system that have come to the fore in the past couple of years, and be interested to get your take on and what you think about them. And we used to rush to try and charge juveniles, 16, 17-year-old kids, as adults. When somebody is convicted of committing a serious crime, people wanted them to go away for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. What do you think of that now? Do you think we should be prosecuting children or juveniles as adults, or do you think there's another way to do this, another solution?
There's another way, Alan, and you put your finger on something very important. We need to rethink our criminal justice system in this country to enhance public safety, because it's just not working. Crime under our current district attorney's tenure is skyrocketing, as is homelessness. Homelessness is up over 40%. Homicides in Orange County are up over 20%. Firearms offenses are up over 50%. The way we are doing business is not working here or across the country. Juvenile justice is central to that. I believe we need to end the prosecution of children as adults. Orange County recently had an unfortunate distinction of prosecuting more children as adults, referring more juvenile cases to adult court than any other county in California. And that's a real problem. We pay a price for that as a county and as a society. The statistics tell us very clearly that when children are locked up with more hardened offenders, unsurprisingly, they are abused and they learn from them. And when they get out, they lash out, Alan. The studies tell us so clearly that children who are locked up with adults have much higher rates of recidivism than their peers who go through the juvenile justice system. There are some terrific people inside the DA's office right now, line prosecutors who are doing their best to rehabilitate the juvenile justice system, but they need some help from the top, and they need some ethical leadership. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I certainly can be an ethical leader.
And something else that's been in the news, it's a big issue. It's kind of a criminal issue, prosecution issue, police issue, and that's homelessness. We seem to, homelessness was, let's face it, treated as a crime in the past. People who were camping on the streets were moved, arrested. People are kind of turning away from that. But it's a serious problem, and I don't know that there is an answer to it. There might be many answers to it, but just how do you think we should handle it? Do you think homelessness should be criminalized to some extent, or do you think, what do you think the part of the district attorney's office and the criminal justice system would be in dealing with homelessness?
Sure. Yeah. So homelessness has to be a priority here. I know it's top of mind for so many of our residents, and for good reason. Again, in just the last couple of years, homelessness has gone up over 40%, and that's under the current district attorney's tenure. So look, when I was a prosecutor at the DA's office, I saw how people recycle through the system time and again, oftentimes for the same set of underlying reasons and for the same types of offenses. And those the reasons that people were ending up in the system generally broke down into three categories: homelessness, drug and alcohol addiction, or mental health issues. And until we recognize as a society that we've got to treat those as the public health crises that they are, in addition to, not instead of, but in addition to the criminal justice system, then we are only reinforcing this revolving door criminal justice system that provides a lot of job security for the folks who are in it. It's a well-staffed, well-funded system, but it doesn't serve our community. So, slapping homeless people with low-level, non-violent convictions doesn't solve the underlying issues. In fact, it makes it worse. It can result in homeless folks having their benefits turned off, their state or federal benefits turned off, which further exacerbates their ability to find their next job. And again, that drives crime and further homelessness in our communities, because we know from studies that the number one predictor of crime is unemployment. So we've got to figure out a way to bring folks out of homelessness. I've got some ideas about how to do that instead of criminalizing it over and over again and increasing that population.
Okay, thank you. We're running a little short on time. This might be our last question. I wanted to ask you about this, and of course you've kind of mentioned it when you're talking about juvenile crime, juvenile justice, but diversion programs. Are there ways to divert people, people who committed low-level crimes? They don't have to be juveniles, but people who committed low-level crimes, rather than sticking them in the system and seeing what happens. Do you feel that there are programs that could be instituted or running that could help them straighten out their lives?
Yes, absolutely. So the diversion programs, for those watching and listening, are programs that are alternatives to incarceration to help people get out of the criminal justice system instead of caught up in it. And it is so fundamentally important to double down on the programs that we have in place already for folks who are suffering from homelessness or addiction, mental health issues, veterans like me, frankly, coming back from Afghanistan with PTSD issues. There are specialty courts out there, but we need to double down on those, and we need to change the criteria by which some of these folks are admitted to these courts. For example, in drug and alcohol courts, they are not keeping pace with the science. We all know from our personal lives, from friends or family who suffered from addiction issues, that recovery is not a linear pattern. Folks have ups and downs, and generally, hopefully, it goes in the right direction. But as it stands now, the bar to getting and staying in diversion programs is so high that it makes it difficult to solve those underlying issues.
Yeah, these programs can be very effective with some people.
Absolutely.
They really can. And we do have a minute left, so I'm going to ask you one last question about the death penalty. You can answer that as quickly as you like. Are you in favor of the death penalty? Is this something that you feel is necessary, required, or desirable during some cases, or not?
So as DA, Alan, I will seek life without parole for the worst offenders instead of the death penalty. And I'll tell you why. Because it's never been shown to deter crime. It just never has been shown to deter crime. And yet we've spent $300 million on this broken system since 1978. That's siphoning funds away from the things that we know reduce crime, like strong public school education or job placement programs, after school programs. There's so many common sense things that we can do with that money. $300 million. Since 1978, we've only put 13 people to death. There's 750 people on death row. The moral and equity issues aside, it just doesn't make sense from a cost analysis or in any other way, a safety analysis.
Yeah, not to mention the years and years and years that it actually takes for an execution to go through. I mean, there's just all sorts of delays with that. Well, I am sorry that is all the time we have because there are millions of questions. It's a big job and with a lot of tentacles sticking out. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Really appreciate it, and I want to wish you nothing but the best of luck on your race for district attorney. And again, thank you so much for being here.
My great pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be with you, and look forward to coming back and answering the rest of your questions.
We look forward to seeing you again. That's Peter Harding, candidate for the Orange County Office of District Attorney. Thank you so much. We've been talking to Peter Harding, candidate for Orange County District Attorney's Office. Now, I've lived in Orange County for about 6 years. And every one of those years, the Orange County District Attorney's Office has been an embarrassment to the people of Orange County. They seem to be awash in ineptitude and corruption. You know, the Orange County, as Pete Hardin talked about, the judges have taken the Orange County District Attorney's Office off of cases, forbidden them from prosecuting cases because of their prosecutorial malfeasance, because of their ineptitude. That's an embarrassment to Orange County. That should be an embarrassment to the District Attorney's Office. The other case he was mentioning, a very well-publicized sexual assault case. The Orange County District Attorney looked at the case and said, oh, there's nothing here. We don't need to prosecute this. It took the State Attorney General about 5 minutes in reviewing the case to say there's plenty of evidence and it needs to be prosecuted. You know, again, that's another embarrassment to the people of Orange County, and it should be embarrassing to the District Attorney's Office, but it doesn't seem to bother them. They seem to think that the purpose of the District Attorney's Office is to make sure that all law enforcement in Orange County is held unaccountable to anything. We heard Pete Hardin speak, and we know that's not the way he feels. He wants to bring these problems out. He wants to talk about and do something about the ineptitude and the corruption that's going on in the Orange County District Attorney's Office. We also heard him talk about these other topics like juvenile justice, diversion programs. He wants to bring the Orange County District Attorney's Office, kicking and screaming though it may be, into the 21st century. That's where we've been living for the past 20 years. It'd be nice if the District Attorney's Office stepped up and joined us. Now, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Peter Hardin understands that the job and the purpose of the District Attorney's Office in Orange County is to serve and protect the people of Orange County, not to serve and protect themselves. We're talking with Joe Kerr, candidate for the Orange County Board of Supervisors in the 5th District. So first of all, Joe, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay, and the first thing I'd like to ask you before we get into the supervisor's office and your race for the supervisor's office is tell people a little bit about yourself, how you came to come to run to the supervisor's office? Just your background, whatever you feel like.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I'm a retired fire captain. I'm a second generation firefighter. My dad was a firefighter before me. My kid brother's a firefighter. His wife works for Newport Beach Police. My oldest, his wife was also a sheriff deputy. So we have public safety in our background. During June 6, 1994, the County of Orange filed for bankruptcy, and at the time is the world's largest municipal bankruptcy. And I went to bed a fire captain, and I woke up association president for the newly formed Orange County firefighters. We had to create a fire department and a firefighters association in a 100-day time span. The governor at that time, Pete Wilson, wanted to lay off all the paramedics and all the captains and bring in private folks that supported his campaign. It was going to adversely impact. So we had to come up with new funding strategies. And in that time, we learned how to fund a fire department under a new government code, because we're not a department under a county or city or state entity. We're our own self-governing structure. And we had to do so by streamlining efficiencies. So we took over healthcare from management, and the firefighters run it, and we give back $1 to $2 million a year. We learned to streamline it. We took over wellness fitness to keep our firefighters safe. And we were able to lower workers' compensation rates to a 6-year low. Healthcare, retiree healthcare, and Governor Schwarzenegger called Orange County firefighters the centerpiece pension reform in the state of California. And then we started paying down our pensions, and we're going to be close to 90% by next year on paying those down. And we did that because we're in Orange County. We wanted to be responsible. In 2002, Governor Davis tried to appoint me to the Orange County Board of Supervisors for an open seat. And the Board of Supervisors changed the 100-plus-year-old law of the County of Orange, so the governor could not appoint me. Two Republicans, Todd Spitzer and Bill Campbell, decided to dupe the citizens and saying that was good for the people. But the entire charter, instead of being hundreds of pages, was basically one piece of paper saying the governor can't appoint. So there's some, a history in the County of Orange where they don't follow the rules, regulations, policies, procedures, and they don't do what's good for the citizens. They do what's good for themselves. As someone once said, they spend more time keeping their job than doing their job. So I ran in 2018 in District 4. The law allows you to move into a district 30 days before an election. I moved to where I grew up a year and a half before the election. I grew up in Cypress, Buena Park, Fullerton, Brea area, La Habra area of Orange County. And we came within 0.4% of winning, 376 votes out of 88,000. At that time, there were only 4 Democrats in the race. This time, if I have a chance to run, because as you said, Alan, we don't know what the districts are going to look like. They're playing as we speak. They're playing with the districts, and they may try to move Laguna Woods into District 2. So you'll be in there with the Newport Beach and Costa Mesa and out of District 5, where you've been traditionally for over a decade. And we may not even have an election in District 5 if they merge us into District 3. So I'm running because I want to bring some common sense, practical leadership, some pragmatism to the board.
Let me ask you a elemental question before we get into the nitty gritty of the race itself, because a lot of people just don't know, especially people who have moved to California, which a lot of people do. What is the job and responsibilities of an Orange County supervisor?
And that's a great question, because in Laguna Woods, Leisure World, Laguna Hills, South Orange County, most of South Orange County districts are what we call contract. Most of South Orange County cities are contracts. Sheriff's Department, you contract fire, Orange County Fire Authority, and paramedic service, and ambulance, and road construction, and waste management, and trash, and so forth. So the County Board of Supervisors basically overlooks all those services for the citizens of Orange County, and oversight to such things as social services and healthcare. And healthcare is Cal Optima, and 25% of Orange County residents are under the Cal Optima Medicare program for their citizens. So it's a very important job. Also, is keeping the freeways running, keeping the traffic going, the whole 9 yards. But for the citizens of Laguna Woods and so forth, the number one basic thing is going to be public safety and roads and things of that nature.
Yeah. Oh, let me ask you now, let's get into the Board of Supervisors. Now, your background is different than a lot of other people who run for public office in this area. Usually people running for local public office, they have attorneys who've been working in campaigns since they've been in school, or small business owners who became involved in business organizations. But your experience is different than that. So how do you think your experience as fire, how do you feel that translates into the Board of Supervisors? How do you think that would help you?
Yeah, that's a good question, Alan. You know, why does a firefighter want to be an elected official? Well, it's not a matter of wanting to be, it's almost a matter of needing to be, because we need to bring some common sense to the Orange County Board of Supervisors. We need someone up there to say, follow the rules, the regulations, the policies, procedures, and the law. And think about the citizen, the taxpayer, the constituent before you think about yourself. The irony is we had to learn how to fund a government. There was a fire department. It's a $450 million organization. A lot of people smarter than me, but we put them in the room and we figured problems out. It's about problem solving. Government is about problem solving. And we put them in the room. And in the last 20 years, we were able to bring in over $800 million in new revenue to the fire authority, and do so without one penny in new taxes. Try that sometimes. No one else in the United States has done that as a fire organization. So when the county has a problem and they need something from Sacramento, for example, we mentioned earlier that the County of Orange, for every dollar we send to Sacramento, and keep in mind, the County of Orange is we're the second largest contributor to one of the largest enterprises in the world, the fifth largest economy on the planet. And for every dollar we send to Sacramento, we only get 5 cents back. San Diego and LA get about 14 to 17 cents back. San Francisco, last I checked, gets 59 cents back. The average in the state of California gets 14 cents back on the dollar. We only get 5 cents back. So the County of Orange, they were trying to be clever in about 2015, and they decided not to send their vehicle license fees monies back to the state of California. They kept them because we're the only one of the 58 counties. Instead of following the rules and how you legislate change, and since they changed the governing structure of the county to a charter, they kind of, put us in a bad position, really bad leadership in the past in the County of Orange. Well, they lost all of their vehicle license fee money to the state of California. Jerry Brown, governor, took it. And they called me and they said, we lost. And vehicle license fee money is every time you register your vehicle, every time you register your car with the DMV. The County of Orange never sent the state's portion. They kept it all. So they called me and they said, will you get our money back from the state of California? And I said, well, I'm not an elected official. I'm a firefighter. And they said, yeah, but the governor, can you help us get it back? I go, would you call your lobbyists? They said, yeah, they failed. Did you call your legislators? Yeah, they failed. Did you call your attorneys? They said, yeah, we sued, we lost. Did you appeal? Yes, we lost that too. And I said, I'm not going to do that. That's your job. You're the 3.1 million citizens in Sacramento. It's your job. And then the president of the Sheriff's Association called, and the president of the Orange County Employees Association. They said, look, if you don't help us get this money back, we're going to be looking at layoffs. This year is not a lot, but next year we don't know. So I went to Sacramento. I met with the governor, and he said, and the governor put together a team of people to meet with me. And he said, Joe, do you realize you're the only one in this room that's not elected? And I go, yeah, but if I brought the Orange County Board of Supervisors up here to meet with you, Governor, would you meet with them? And he goes, heck no. I won't tell you what well, Governor, that's why I'm here. And he says, I'm not going to give those 5 people their money back. They sued me. They lost. There are consequences. I used to be the Attorney General, Joe. You know how this works. I said, Governor, it's not about 5 supervisors who did the wrong thing. It's about 3 million citizens, taxpayers. That's their money, and we need to get it back to them. We're the second largest contributor to your coffers. Money from Orange County paves roads in Sacramento, paves roads in San Diego, paves roads in San Francisco. If you get a deal with the speaker and the president pro tem of the Senate, I will sign that deal. And he goes, and by the way, they're not getting along. So it was 100 days out of my life, but we got all the money back. So I positioned myself to know a lot of the inner workings of the county, of public safety, of our tax base. And I think that's what we need right now in Orange County on the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, so you are not a, shall we say, a neophyte when it comes to dealing with state agencies and members of the state government. You've had experience in that, maybe more experience than other people have had.
More than I wanted, to be honest with you, Alan. I didn't want to be an expert in legislative bills, including one last week for public safety to stop some of these wildfires in the state of California and bring technology to bear. And we're going to work on it in the United States Congress for the Western states, because and I'm partnering with UCSD. I don't ever try to be the smartest person in the room. I just try to have the phone number of the smartest people in the room and get them in the room.
Right. Well, one of the things that you did talk about, I think, is I'll just add this as my own comment, is a continuing problem here in Orange County, and that is getting back our tax money. We give an awful lot of tax money to the state of California, and we have not had people in public office, people in Orange County. Once it goes to Sacramento, we help everybody else, but nobody helps us. So I think it's a good thing that that your opinion of it is opposite of that. And that's not the way to do things. I want to ask you too, because you brought it up too, about redistricting, which is going on right now. Laguna Woods is currently in the 5th district, which we historically have been in. And it's possible that we will be moved out of the 5th district. So just interested in your opinion about redistricting, what you think is going on, what you think should be done, how it should go.
Well, in 2008, I worked with Governor Schwarzenegger at his request, and Steve Wesley, the former state controller of California and one of the eBay co-founders. And we decided to take redistricting. Was upset. Democrats leaders were upset and Republican leaders were upset. And I figured, hey, if I'm making everybody upset, I might be doing the right thing. And what we did is we put it into a nonpartisan commission. The voters of California voted to say, we don't want our legislators to pick their voters. We want the voters to pick the legislators. And that's not my soundbite. Governor Davis made that up long before me. And so the nonpartisan commission makes up, per the California Voting Rights Act and the federal laws, they make up the districts so that they don't do it on a part in the nonpartisan commission, as always. And right now, as we speak, they are cutting up the county of Orange, red versus blue, not based on what's good for you as a voter, not based on what's good for you as a private citizen, not based on what's good for you as a community that uses public services, but based on what's good for them as incumbents. And it's very disheartening. So last Tuesday, they approved 3 maps to go forward, 2 of which people spoke on and that were within the legal confines of the Voter Rights Act. 2 and 3 maps that were forwarded last week. As of today, it has grown to another 6 maps. How that happened, I don't know. So they weren't necessarily submitted by the people. And out of all these maps, 5 of the 6 basically put Laguna Woods in a district with either Huntington Beach or potentially Anaheim Hills. But the citizens, the hundreds of thousands of voters of South Orange County, Democrat, Republican, declined to stay. In the current district, there's 100,000 people who don't. Out of all of those districts, there's only one map, proposal 2A, that allows for the 5th district to have a vote in 2022. If they put us into Supervisor Don Wagner's district, we don't get to vote in 2022. It comes up in 2024. And we've only seen 2 incumbents lose their job in the last half a century. We have a chance now of getting 3 Democrats on the Board of Supes for the first time in decades. But it's really not about Dems or Republicans. It's really about voters having a say in who represents them and not the other way around. So 5 of these map proposals are horrible, and they put us all into bad districts. And I'm sorry to say, Laguna Woods may not be in a district where I will be allowed to run as your representative. And that's very disheartening because the cherry picking that has gone on in the last 6 days.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Joe, we are out of time. But one thing I want to say too is that if we end up out of your district, there's still ways for people to help you get elected. If we're in a different district and you're still running to the 5th, The website is very simple, Joe Kerr, JoeKerroc.com, JoeKerroc.com. Campaign can always use people to make phone calls,
Yes.
to knock on doors, to send texts, to write postcards. And of course, there is always the need for money for contributions.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you so much for being here today, Joe. It's a great pleasure to speak to you. And I want to wish you all the best luck. We hope that we can get to vote for you in the 5th district. But the important thing is not that we vote for Joe Kerr in the 5th district to get him on the Board of Supervisors. The important thing is that Joe Kerr is elected to serve on the Board of Supervisors. So thank you very much. Lots of good luck. We'll be thinking of you all the way through.
Alan,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody. Appreciate you all.
Well, we've been overwhelmed for the past year and a half, 2 years by the coronavirus pandemic. But our Board of Supervisors really hasn't done very much to keep the people of Orange County safe or to keep us informed about the pandemic. The Board of Supervisors didn't follow public health guidelines, didn't follow medical advice, didn't follow scientific evidence, didn't even use their common sense. They caved in immediately to the loudest, most strident, least informed, most ill-informed voices in the county. Board of Supervisors wouldn't even stand behind their own public health agent. She resigned because her and her family were getting death threats because she suggested the county might want to follow public health guidelines. Just recently, Board of Supervisors forbid the current county health agent from appearing in a weekly forum where he discussed with the public the status of the coronavirus here in Orange County. According to Andrew Doe, the supervisor, the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, it was a waste of the county health officer's time. County health officer speaking to the public about the worst public health disaster we've had in over 100 years. It sounds to me a lot more like part of his job than a waste of his time. I don't think there's any question when Joe Kerr gets elected to the Board of Supervisors, he will become a voice of reason on that board, something that is sorely lacking. We heard him talk about his experiences, 30 years, more than 30 years experience in various fire agencies in Orange County, working with both county officials and state government officials. That's a perfect combination of both skills and experience to be on the Board of Supervisors. When Joe Kerr gets elected to the Board of Supervisors, this is a job he can, as they say, hit running. We're talking with Shireen Smith, who's a candidate for the Orange County Board of Education in the 5th District. First of all, thank you so much for being here and taking your time and speaking with us today. It's greatly appreciated.
I'm very happy to be here.
And the first question I want to ask you is about yourself. Talk a little bit about yourself, if you would. Just tell people who you are and how you ended up running for Board of Education.
Okay, well, I have served in education throughout my professional career. I began as a teacher and went on to serve as a high school assistant principal, a middle school principal, a high school principal. I eventually went into the district office as a district administrator. I worked in Capistrano Unified. When I left there, I was the deputy superintendent of education. So I had oversight of a lot of departments in my division. And then I ultimately served as the superintendent of Laguna Beach Unified School District. I had a very long and wonderful career. I feel very good about investing in our students in our public schools. As you can imagine, one of the foremost responsibilities I had as a leader was finding solutions to problems in a constructive and flexible way. I think that will assist me in my, I hope for, role on the Orange County Board of Education. Given the length and breadth of my career, I've been involved in every aspect of running a school and a school district, which I think will be very valuable on the Orange County Board of Education. I provided a strong instructional program and safe school environment. And by the way, when I say it was always teamwork. It was never me, myself. It was always the very wonderful people that I worked with. But I was the leader and therefore responsible. And so in addition to providing a strong instructional environment and safe school environment, I was responsible for hiring, supervising, and evaluating personnel, conducting short and long-term planning, which is essential to success. That was in all areas. I acted as a prudent fiscal steward of our district budgets and our school budgets, putting kids first. I was responsible for overseeing facilities use, including planning and maintenance and building new facilities. Part of the role of being a school leader, be it principal, district administrator, or superintendent, teacher as well, every role, it's important to listen to every person and understand their needs and their perspective, to look for common ground and to find a constructive resolution to problems. And I think that's one of my best assets and strengths, is being a good problem solver by listening to people and knowing what kinds of options are out there that can provide good resolution.
So you've had a lot of experience both as a teacher in education and in administration in the school system. And before we get into speaking about the Board of Education and your election of Board of Education, let's let people know, because people don't know, what does the Board of Education do?
It's kind of misleading because it sounds so lofty, the Orange County Board of Education, and people assume that therefore the local school districts, the one I mentioned, Capistrano Unified or Laguna Beach or Saddleback Valley or Tustin Unified, Irvine, they assume that those school districts are that report to the Orange County Board of Education, that somehow that Board of Education has precedence over local school districts, which is not the fact. The local school boards make decisions for their local communities and their local schools. The Orange County Board of Education has more of a appellate role. They serve as an appeals body from school districts when there are student expulsions or inter-district transfers. They also have the responsibility of providing a oversight of the county Department of Education budget, and to provide the transparency and accountability that are necessary so that we all adhere to the laws as prescribed. And they have some oversight of the Department of Education, the Orange County Department of Education's programs and budget, but mostly those are in the hands of the Orange County Superintendent of Education, who's also elected because he is the expert. They are not, they are board members and must rely on the staff who are the professionals in the area.
Okay, thank you. Because people don't know that. Let's get into the Board of Education right now. The Board of Education as it's construed and as it's obviously you're running through the office, so you think that there's some shortcomings on the current Board of Education. So why don't you talk for a minute? Tell us about how you see the Board of Education today, and what you see as its role for it in the future, whatever vision you might have for the Board of Education.
Thank you. Well, I'm very disappointed with the Orange County Board of Education right now. What they should do is champion our public schools, and they are absolutely not doing that. In fact, they're doing quite the contrary. So let me tell you first what I would envision for the Orange County Board of Education, and then we can maybe break down some of the criticisms I have or concerns I have later on in the interview. As I said, the Orange County Board of Education should champion our public schools. I envision creating a board culture that celebrates the great work our schools are doing by working together with other board members and the county superintendent in a professional, and this is key, non-partisan manner. Currently, the board majority, which is a 4-person majority, acts in a very partisan way and a very ideological way, and their interests are not focused on what's best for kids, but rather on their partisan leanings. The board should focus on the ultimate goal of providing a high quality learning experience and improving student achievement in our local schools and districts. They are supposed to support that. It's important to have a positive relationship and good teamwork among the board members and with the superintendent. By following a few principles. They should understand the importance of creating a positive climate throughout the county office, schools, and programs, and they should model that teamwork. They should share a common interest in the welfare and education of students enrolled in our public schools. Of course, they should have a positive attitude, listen carefully to each other, and be respectful of each other's views. They should communicate openly, honestly, and tactfully. These are all things I would like to see, that I envision seeing on the Board of Education. To earn trust by acting with integrity, which I do not believe they currently do. to display a high level of professionalism, which I also don't think they do, to operate with fairness, and to maintain their focus on the board's goals and the business at hand, and to keep the public informed about the county office's goals, programs, and progress, which I rarely hear from them. Instead, they focus on issues that impact the state and the nation at large. That's not their purview. And they should also, this is really important, work cooperatively with the elected Orange County Superintendent of Education. He is the expert. He was a teacher. He was a school district superintendent. He did work for the college board. He's very knowledgeable and committed to public education. And they have basically refused to work with him because they are pursuing their partisan and ideological interests instead of putting the best interest of kids first. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, public education is the cornerstone of our democracy. We have outstanding teachers and students in Orange County. This current Board of Education, the majority, gives little to no attention to their accomplishments, and we should be proud of the hard work done by our schools. They're among the best in the nation. As a result, and I'm speaking as a former high school administrator and former high school principal, our students attend some of the best universities in the nation. And I'd like to showcase that at the Orange County Board of Education by inviting schools and districts and teachers and students and principals to come and highlight their exemplary programs, including the county programs, by making presentations to the board. This would help our community members understand the impressive achievements attained by our students, and also to build public support for schools. So that's kind of what I envision if I were on the Board of Education and we could get a really constructive majority that supports public schools.
You know, when we have things to brag about, achievements to brag about, we should brag about them and let people know about it. Yeah, I agree. I think in listening to the things that you said about the shortcomings of the board, the way the board operates today, I'd like you to speak about, because I think it's like a vivid demonstration of what you were talking about. Is the various lawsuits that the Board of Education has filed against the state. No, you go ahead and talk about it.
Well, yes, this is one of the big bugaboos that I have with the Orange County Board of Education. And I think most taxpayers would feel the same way, not just educators, but taxpayers. The current board majority has wasted over $4 million in taxpayer dollars on unnecessary and self-serving lawsuits since 2017. Prior to 2017, the board spent very little money on lawsuits, hardly $1. But since 2017, they have filed 4 lawsuits, 2 against the Orange County Superintendent of Education, Dr. Mijares, who is an elected official who does not report to them, and also 2 against Governor Newsom and the state Superintendent of Education, Tony Thurmond. Now, the Board of Education used to share one attorney with the Department of Education, and it was never a problem. This worked for decades, several decades. And then after they got the majority in 2018, they decided they wanted to have their own attorney, and they filed a lawsuit against the county superintendent, Dr. Mijares, to achieve that purpose. That lawsuit was finally settled after much litigation. And by the way, we pay for both sides of the lawsuit. So ultimately, that lawsuit wasted over $3 million. And I can't, by any stretch of the imagination, find any good outcome that serves kids by wasting $3 million on a needless lawsuit. They also have sued Superintendent Mijares and the state over control of the county budget, the County Department of Education. They are supposed to provide an oversight role and provide transparency and accountability to budget laws, but they want to control every aspect of the budget. They don't have that authority, but they have filed a lawsuit to try to make some inroads to gain that authority. Now, mind you, they have no expertise, none, in education budgeting. They've never run any schools. They've never had responsibility for developing budgets or implementing them to serve kids. And they don't have staff. They have no staff that works for them. All of the staff work for the superintendent and the County Department of Education. So it's interesting that they want control over the budget, but they don't have any knowledge or expertise. which, I kind of wonder, does that mean then they are ultimately trying to take over the Orange County Department of Education and have the staff work for them? I don't know. I mean, that remains to be seen. We'll see how that lawsuit works out. Okay, that was 2 lawsuits. So then there were 2 other ones filed against Governor Newsom and Tony Thurmond. The first lawsuit was filed in the summer of 2020. I think it was July or August. And the board wanted to force California and Orange County schools in particular to reopen schools for in-person learning when online learning was the norm then because of the pandemic and the conditions that were, rampant. That lawsuit was ultimately rejected by the California Supreme Court. So a year later, this past August, they filed a second lawsuit against Governor Newsom and Tony Thurmond, the state superintendent, because they are opposed to the mask mandate that's in place for students in our schools and employees. That lawsuit was also rejected by the California Supreme Court. So again, 2 more lawsuits, wasting money. You might as well have, stack a big pile of $1,000 bills and just set it on fire. And then the irony is the board majority has not yet learned their lesson, nor are they done wasting our tax dollars, because they recently, in their recent board meeting, stated they intend to file yet another lawsuit against Governor Newsom, this one about the vaccine mandate for students. So it appears they will continue their reckless and wasteful abuse of our tax dollars until we put a stop to it.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. We just have just about a minute left, but I just wanted to ask you, that's a lot of money that they've squandered on lawsuits, losing lawsuits. How do you think, if you could be brief here, because we already had time, but how do you feel that money, is there other ways that money could have been spent that would have been more beneficial to the school children of Orange County?
So many other ways. And I'll be brief because I know we're almost out of time. So let me just kind of run through a list, like former principal, teacher, superintendent, every student, every teacher, every principal, every parent can make a list of things that our schools need. So I'll just list a few. Books, we always need textbooks, library books, books for English classrooms. We need supplies, we need microscopes, Bunsen burners, fume hoods, we need music supplies, we need sheet music, violins, clarinets, we need art supplies like clay and photography equipment, 3D printers, we need technology, computers, devices, etc. Drama, we have great drama programs. We have to pay for scripts, for costumes, for wood, for paint. We need athletic and PE equipment and facilities. We have career tech pathways, and those have specialized needs. There are pathways like culinary arts and hospitality, video production, visual communications, computer science, auto technology, etc. And just the basics, upgraded classrooms, additional English and math classes, lower class sizes, counseling. There's so many things we could spend $4 million on other than needless losses.
Yeah, really. Well, thank you so much. I'm sorry that we are out of time because, it's a never ending topic. We have a lot to discuss, but I want to thank you very much for taking your time. Wish you lots of good luck with your election and the election coming up. And Shireen Smith, candidate for the Orange County Board of Education in the 5th District. Once again, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Oh, there's no question. Our local elected officials, our boards, our agencies for the last year and a half, 2 years have not really done well by us here in Orange County. But I think maybe the most egregious is the Board of Education because they deal with the health and the welfare of the school children of Orange County. We listened to Shireen Smith speak, so we know no sooner did the schools close back in 2020 when the Board of Education joined a lawsuit to have the schools reopened. And they didn't care that much about mandatory masking or social distancing or ventilating the school building or cleaning the classrooms after the day. They just wanted the schools open. This was 2020. This was July 2020 when they filed the suit. This was the height of the first wave of the pandemic. No vaccines, right? No therapeutic drugs. They wanted the schools open. They wanted 30 kids in a classroom. No mandatory masking. No social distancing, teachers without masking or distancing, staff without masking or distancing. You have to wonder if they had won that suit, what could have possibly gone wrong? And as Shireen said, they didn't learn their lesson when the schools reopened and the mask mandate was instituted because of the Delta variant. They rushed out to sue the Board of Education, to sue the governor again. So there's no doubt in my mind that Shireen Smith would not have sat idly by while the Board of Education rushed out to waste their time, to waste our money, and to put in jeopardy the health and welfare of both children of Orange County. When Shireen Smith gets elected to the Board of Education, she has spent her whole life in education. When she gets elected to the Board of Education, there's no doubt in my mind she'll become the most qualified and the most experienced member of that Board of Education. So it's very important that we vote for Shireen Smith. I think it's so important that we elect Pete Hart, District Attorney, Joe Kerr, Board of Supervisors, and Shireen Smith to the Board of Education. There are three candidates whose positions are actually based in reality, not fantasy, not wishful thinking, and not conspiracy theories. We have enough elected politicians, both in this county and throughout the country, who absolutely refuse to confront the problems that we face. This denial, this refusal to face reality, this lying has real consequences. And the biggest consequence we have right now is over 750,000 dead Americans. Right? It didn't have to be that way. If we had followed common sense and public health initiatives and medical evidence, we would have a lot less fatalities than we do now. There's no question that we need a change. We need to change not only in politics, but we need to change in the attitude and the behavior of our elected officials. For too many years, we've been listening to them tell us that up is down and black is white. Don't believe what you hear with your own ears and don't listen to what you see with your own eyes. Right? We need people in elective office who are based in reality and willing to confront the situations as they actually are. So it's so important that we elect these people that we spoke with today, Joe Kerr, Shireen Smith, and Pete Harden. We need people based in reality. The only way we can change things is by voting, right? That's our voice in democracy. That's our power, is the vote. We spent 4 years waiting for the past presidential administration, waiting for somebody, some institution, some organization to stand up and say, this has got to stop. This is wrong. We need to do something. But Congress never did anything. The courts never did anything. The only time things stopped is when we voted. Vote is our power. The vote is our voice. So let's not sit by quietly. Let's flex our muscles. Let's use our voice. Let's vote. We're all counting on each other to vote. We're all counting on you to vote. Thank you so much for watching us, and we hope to see you again soon.